Art can mean different things to different people. For me, art can mean different things to different people. For me, it's all about the joy of creativity. So if you draw, paint, write, dance, sing, craft, play air guitar, or even sculpt using nothing more than mashed potatoes, consider yourself an artist and join our conversation. For the next half hour, meet the artist and learn about their inspiration while we all enjoy the beauty of creativity. Welcome to Season 2 of Art Talk with John Cole Artist. Hey everybody, good evening. It's John Cole on Art Talk with John Cole Artist. Hey, sorry for that goofy little intro there where I kind of made a skip. It's been one of those days. It's been a very exciting day. It's been an amazing day. I'm kind of discombobulated right now. As a matter of fact, I left my coffee in the other room, which means I'm coffeeless tonight, which is never a good thing for me. Christine's on. Christine, she says, hello, beautiful soul. Well, hello back to you, Christine. Christine has been a very strong supporter of Art Talk with John Cole Artist this whole time, and I absolutely appreciate that. Today is, let's find out. Today is Tuesday, May 7th. And man, I started off the day a little on the anxious side because today is the day that my book, as you can see right here, Seeking Permission, Finding the Freedom to Live Your Own Life, became available on Amazon Kindle to be specific. And I didn't quite know what to expect. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And maybe a little later, I'll read you a little excerpt from the book. For those that haven't been following on Facebook, I did make a minor change. So I'll get that out of the way up front. Originally, I was going to have Anna Davis on, and her book, Tides of Transformation is due out soon. And we talked about it, and we felt it best if we moved her ahead one day. That way I could, come on in, whoever's lurking at my door. Oh, it's the coffee lady. She's bringing me my coffee. I appreciate that. Thank you, Christine. So we figured we'd make a little bit of a shift. That way I could focus a little more on my book today, and then we'll focus on her book tomorrow. And her book is going to be amazing. Matter of fact, I think everybody that wrote books this year, amazing stuff. But yeah, Seeking Permission. It came out this morning. And let me tell you, I had no idea what to expect. I really didn't. I woke up this morning with kind of a loose plan on how I was going to approach this. And for what it's worth, I do have a staff behind me working so that I am successful. So a lot of credit goes to Allison Roberts, my coach. This has been her program, and she's the one that's been helping to guide me from January to today. And of course, Laura Lindsay, my editor, who just did a fantastic job on editing this book. And I spoke a little bit about this on a Facebook Live earlier today, kind of an impromptu thing that I did. But, the book writing process was kind of abbreviated. We started this thing in January when we first started writing our first words. And what was funny is we all met up in Florida for a writer's retreat. And there was like seven of us doing this. And it's really funny because they wanted us to write the first 30 pages. I mean, the book's only roughly 100 pages long. So how hard could 30 pages be? Well, I wrote 30 pages, and we took a look at it. And, after some serious soul searching, we realized that those first 30 pages really weren't 30 pages to keep. So I ended up having to rewrite those 30 pages when I got back. But the good thing is, between the writing that I did and Allison's support, and of course, Laura's support, I'm so happy that this book is now out on Amazon, and people are leaving some wonderful reviews. And for those folks that have, that received, because I sent out a few advanced copies to kind of get some feedback to make sure that that what I wrote wasn't horrible, right? Because as much as we don't need outside validation, sometimes it's kind of nice when somebody says, hey, you know what? I read your book and it resonates with me. It's meaningful to me. And that's exactly what I'm getting with the folks that did a pre-read. So thank you to those folks, those people that have purchased the book so far. I have no idea how many people bought it. And again, it's only 99 cents today on Amazon, and it will be 99 cents for the next few days or so. So if you're interested in buying, now would be a really good time to get it. But yeah, thanks to everybody that's been supporting me and sending love and kind wishes my way. It really means a lot. So what is the book? What's it about? Well, this is what I would call a hybrid of sorts. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a fan of self-help books. And I don't mean that because I don't like what people write. I just tend not to read them, right? I was born and bred with this mindset that everything was on me to solve, right? And if it's on you to solve, then you tend not to look outside of yourself to improve yourself or go in a different direction. And I think what happens with that is that we get trapped in that world. If we're raised in an angry household, we're raised in a sad household, where maybe on the streets we end up believing that that's our whole world, and then we carry that with us. And for me specifically, having spent so much time in the Coast Guard, I think that my mind is a little bit closed when it comes to the word self-help. But to be honest with you, I think there's a lot of value in that, which is really why I thought writing this book was important. It got me out of my comfort zone, because it's really not an area that I'm known for, right? I'm known for family histories. I'm known for, some of the artistic things that I do, but I'm really not known for self-help. For me, it's also part intimidation. You read a boy, that I can only say that word so many times and then I can't say it anymore. Self-help books. At some point, you feel intimidated because, well, you've got these doctors and these experts writing this stuff, which is good. It's all good stuff. But on the other hand, sometimes it's not necessarily relatable. And I think that seeking permission, along with some of the others that you're going to see presented over the next few weeks, are written by people that, we're not doctors. We've gone through this stuff firsthand, and we're able then to share or shed some light on some of the struggles that we had. And ultimately, I think, in my opinion, that then becomes even more valuable, because it's not just some doctor, or some well-known figure putting out the information, having not experienced it, but you're actually getting the experience from the people that actually lived through it, and the nice thing is that there are some folks that have not only gone through it, but written about it. Allison Roberts is a great example. Her book, The Spiritual Journey, she excels at what she does, but she also lived this stuff, and that makes, for me, it makes it more impactful, just like I hope my story is impactful to you. So I started off this morning really with this loose idea that I'm going to talk a little bit about the book and maybe, put out a couple of Facebook posts or whatnot. And really today I ended up spending most of the day reaching out to people, making sure that they had access to the book. Did some TikToks. TikToks haven't gone really, really well, but TikTok is hit or miss half the time. Facebook, of course, did a couple lives. And I've been talking to people all day, and it's really been great because some of these folks I haven't talked to in a while, so it really gave me a good opportunity to reach out to them. But really, if there's anybody that would like to ask any questions or anything like that, feel free to put them in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them. It doesn't look like there's a lot of people online, so I'm not expecting a lot of responses. However, if you're watching a replay of this later on, by all means, ask any questions that you might have. Okay, so the book itself took about, so we started in January and we're in May, so that's what, 5 months? 5 months. That's a really quick time. But the thing is that, the idea behind the book, well, let me back up a little bit. The big question when I started writing this was, what was I going to write about, because like most of us, we sometimes don't feel that we've led an interesting life or that our stories are important. And I think you probably run into that a lot when you're having conversations with people, right? You'll say something like, hey, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? And then they might respond by saying, well, there's nothing to tell. Or they'll change the subject and say, well, why don't you tell me a little bit more about you? And I think that's because people do tend to downplay their experiences, and I think that's a shame, because we all are individuals, and we all have led amazing lives, whether we know it or not. And I think recognizing that your life is amazing is something that other people would definitely relate to or be interested in. For me, I grew up with this passion for the paranormal and for Bigfoot and for, building plastic models and reading books based on movies. I didn't know anybody else that enjoyed that. So I tended then to think that that wasn't interesting. But looking back on that, I look back and I say, well, that's really what made me unique. And I probably should have talked more about that. But the good news is I can today, because I don't care anymore whether or not people judge the things that I like or the things that I do or that I think, because it's really none of their business. It's my business, right? It's my life. I control it. I own it. I control the horizontal and the vertical, and you guys do too. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's see. Christine asks a question. She says, what is your personal takeaway from writing the book and revisiting your life? What is my personal takeaway from writing the book and revisiting your life? Well, I'm going to answer the second part of that question first, and that's a really good question. So thank you for that, for asking that. I think from revisiting my life, it's that, even in the times, even in my darkest times, or situations that didn't necessarily pan out to my expectations, looking back on it, I'm thankful that they happened. I'm actually thankful that I had the childhood I had. I'm thankful that I've had the experiences that I've had, even though they haven't necessarily, again, turned out the way I wanted them to, because without them, I would never have written that book, and I would not be here right now answering this question for you. And that's pretty profound when you think about it. Everything that's happened before now has led me to this moment. And I think that's a theme that you hear in movies sometimes. But I think it's very, very true. If not for yesterday and the day before and 10 years ago and 20 years and 30 and 40 and all that crap that at the time I felt was like, oh my God, the sky is falling. I needed all that in order to be the person I am today. So by revisiting those parts of my life and really talking about it and being open about it, I think that, number one, it's reduced a lot of shame and guilt around that. And the second thing is that it's really made me see that I do have worth. The first part of your question, what is your personal takeaway from writing the book? I think my personal takeaway is that it's okay to be honest and it's okay to be open. I think you can be honest and open without being a jerk about it. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily have to, make it out as if your life is worse than somebody else's or your life is better than somebody else's. I think we're all the same. And I think by just being open and honest about our experiences, we're really able to relate to people a lot more than I think we wouldn't. Christine, you ask another good question here. What wisdom would you give your younger self? Well, wisdom I would give so we're not talking about going back in time and doing something different. We're talking about, hey, present John is going to talk to that 20-year-old John, who to this day just makes me crazy, right? This poor guy just had no idea what he was doing. I think the wisdom I would offer him is that even though things seem challenging, things seems difficult, and you feel very angry about it, it's going to get better. And all you need to do is just kind of hang in there and just make decisions for your life, just like you did, with the best data you have at the time. And that's all you can do. And that you need to forgive yourself if something doesn't quite work out the way you wanted it to, and I think that's important. We do tend to have a lot of that self-talk saying, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I'd done that, or I shouldn't have done something. Boy, my phone is just really ringing tonight. But I think that would be the wisdom that I would give my younger self, is just to keep making the best decisions you can based on the data that you have. What challenges did you face writing this book, and would you approach it differently next time? I think the biggest challenge I may have had when writing this book was parameters, meaning, when you write anything about anything, and I think this is for term papers for college, because I think I ran into this same problem then, and that is, what are your parameters? What are you writing about? Because if you're writing something that's personal, like my book has a lot of these anecdotes throughout my life, and then not only the challenges, but then what I was thinking at the time, and then over time, how I managed to kind of overcome these things. There's a lot to choose from. So I think my biggest challenge during this whole process was defining what that scope is, right? I can't start talking about when I was 5 years old and then talk up to when I was 58 years old and then include all that, because there's just a massive amount of information there. So I think the big challenge was trying to pick and choose those events in my life, or those situations that really fell in with this whole idea about stories, because that's what my book is about. It's basically about the power of changing your own story, your own narrative. We do tend to, and not even know it, we do tend to live the stories of the past because it's the only thing that we know in theory, right? But the fact is, when you go back and you re-examine those stories and you really take your time to kind of, decouple everything and break them all down into their components, oftentimes you find that the stories that you're telling yourself now were never really true then, but you just chose to believe them, right? So the big challenge again was trying to pick out anecdotes that fit that. And would I approach it differently next time? I don't think I would. I think that for me, the process worked pretty smoothly. As a matter of fact, by the time all the writing was due to the editor, I actually wrote too much. Not way overboard, but just enough where I exceeded what I needed. So that was a good thing, because that gave the editor something to work with. So I think overall, I don't think I would change anything. I think, the question has been raised a few times about whether or not, because really this program is a 6-month program. It really ends in June. And then later on, of course, I'm going to be on the TEDx stage down in Marietta, Georgia on the 16th of May. And that's part of this program, is this book and then this TEDx. They kind of go hand in hand. Admittedly, there is a lot of work that's involved with that, right? We have a big writing piece, and of course we have a big speech piece. And it does feel overwhelming, but it's doable. It's hard, but it's not that hard. So I don't know. I mean, because I do sometimes wonder, if I had a full year to write this book, would it have turned out as good as it had? And sometimes the answer is, well, the less time you work on something, the better it's going to be, because what you're writing about is what you're thinking at the time, as opposed to thinking about it and then thinking about it and thinking about it. And then by the time you're done, it's something completely different. So being a retired military member, did you find it difficult to be vulnerable? How did you handle being vulnerable? Yes. Oh my heavens. Yeah. Vulnerability and John have historically battled. We, the military lifestyle, for those that have been in the military, can relate to this. But the military lifestyle doesn't really support a strong sense of vulnerability, or, expressing your emotions. Military organizations, like any structured organization, if you don't do what they tell you to do, someone will die. Coast Guard, right? It's a life-saving service. I'd argue all the armed forces are the same way. And I would think things like police, fire, and, any of those structured organizations that support people, when you start to insert, emotional state or feelings and things like that at the present moment, when there's an event happening, it could be a catastrophic thing. So I think that, we do tend to detach a little bit. Well, that's an understatement. We detach a lot from our emotional state. That way we can get the mission done. It's really hard then, after doing something for so long, to start to feel again. I think with me, I did have emotions. So it's not like I didn't have any during my Coast Guard service, but they weren't necessarily the emotions that were the most conductive to relationships. I think anger was um, the big thing for me. The way I responded to my life situations was with anger, when in reality it would have been, I would have been far better off acknowledging the pain that I felt, or even the pain I'm causing other people because I'm doing something that they don't agree with. And then, being forthright and frank, and then having a discussion and communications. Instead, I fell back on the anger portion, and I think I did myself a disservice and other people, right? But it was very difficult to start doing that again. The nice thing is I think the book shows a different side of me than any of my previous writings, posts, TikTok videos, or any of that stuff. I think I'm trying really hard to be who I really am. How did I handle being vulnerable? Yeah, well, I mean, you helped out a lot, Christine. You were there when I needed to talk. I had Allison on the coaching side. I had Laura on the book side, and of course, I'm part of Unapologetic Power, which is this amazing group of people that are very supportive. And I love each and every one of them, because that's a conductive environment for folks to really be themselves and not get judgment from other people. And I think that that allowed me to really be myself and speak frankly and from the heart, and not have to worry about what other people are going to think. And that's the thing where I'm trying to get to, is to that place that I don't have to care about what other people think, because it's really not about me. It's about them, right? All right, Christine writes, what advice would you give to military members who are voluntarily retiring or being forced retired? Yeah, that's it's a hard nut to crack. When you invest a significant amount of time to support an organization, and then the time comes when you either voluntarily leave or you have to retire. I myself struggled with that it wasn't a short turnaround. It took years, and I'm still working my way through that, because the fact of the matter is, it's like losing a loved one. It's a grief. What it is? It's a grief process, because you had this passion for doing something, and you love to do it. You love the people, and then the next day you're no longer doing it. So my advice would be is to be patient with yourself, be forgiving of yourself, and just understand that it might take a little bit of time, but the beauty is there's light at the end of the rainbow. So what I would like to do, if you guys don't mind, is I'd like to read a short excerpt out of my book to kind of whet your appetite if you haven't bought it yet. So let me find where I put Kindle here, and I'm going to read you a little bit. All right, I'm going to read you a short snippet from Chapter 3, A New Identity. That's the name of the chapter. And then after that, we'll say our good nights for the evening, and then I'll see you guys next week. So here we go. I am no stranger to moving from one place to another. In fact, by the time I started basic training, I already moved 8 times, 6 as a child and twice as a husband. But that was only the beginning. By the time I completed service, I had moved a total of 27 times. That was an average of once every 2.5 years. And unfortunately, not all of them went well. Expecting I would be fully engaged with basic training and service school for most of the following year, at the end of 1984, we felt it best to remove ourselves from the city. Rightfully so, too, because Buffalo was a dangerous place. Over the short period of time we lived there, I had been propositioned for sex on the street corner and punched in the face by a group of troublemakers at a local video arcade. To leave my wife and child there alone was unthinkable. Besides, moving south had the benefit of family. Despite what they thought of me, they loved my wife and daughter. She would remain safe while I completed my training. After all that, we would reunite at my first duty station. It was a good plan. So I spent my last few months as a civilian helping to resettle my family, visit with friends, and say goodbye to my parents and sister. In January, I boarded a plane to Philadelphia, my first ever flight, and soon found myself aboard a Coast Guard bus to the Recruit Training Center in Cape May, New Jersey. Expecting a warm welcome that would ease the harshness of the brutal winter weather, I was instead greeted only by sub-zero temperatures, howling winds, and our new company commander shouting at us to listen and follow directions. It would become commonplace over the next 8 weeks to deal with his screaming, but honestly, I didn't mind. I needed the structure. I needed the order. I needed the discipline. I needed to avoid making any decisions on my own because they ultimately led to failure, or worse yet, disappointment. It was a strong agreement I had instituted with myself, yet it seemed to be true. The last decision I made before training began the next morning was to select a bed. I decided to go with the top bunk in a bunk bed configuration. When my company commander tossed the garbage can across the floor that following morning, causing a very loud noise that startled me awake, I completely forgot where I was and I jumped to attention. Like a scene from a cartoon, my head slammed into the wall above my bunk and I dropped like a floor 6 feet below. It was indeed a rough start. However, it was the only misstep I had the entire time. My 8 weeks of basic training would form the foundation of who I would become. It taught me discipline, focus, and attention to detail. It taught me to honor and respect others while devoting myself to duty. It taught me the significance of a uniform service, that a common look and feel can strip away personal bias. It was the first time I was in a situation where I felt I was on equal ground with everyone at my rank because everyone had the same exact opportunity to succeed. Yeah, boot camp. Boot camp it really set the stage for me to believe some stories that I grew to adopt, needing to be organized all the time, needing to have a plan all the time, and to some extent needing to know the outcome of everything that I did. And when you're put in a situation like that and you learn to believe that structured organization is your life, and once you adopt those thoughts, it can really wreak havoc on personal relationships because not everybody wants that tight structure, right? So that was a short piece out of my book, a little bit about boot camp and the fact that right after boot camp, I went to a training center in Petaluma. And really that's where a lot of my, some of my most challenging stories was during that period of time. So, but I encourage you to read the book and check that out because whether or not you're in the military or not, I think a lot of us have moved around. A lot of us have faced situations where we've had to perhaps do some things or work with some folks that, it isn't always easy to do or work with, right? So, all right. Well, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch. And Christine, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. And anybody else that tuned in that I didn't see, thank you so much. It's been an amazing day. My book is doing pretty well from what I can tell. Seeking Permission, Finding the Freedom to Live Your Own Life. Available today on Kindle, Amazon Kindle. And for those that are interested in a printed version later on, that should be a couple more weeks and you'll start to see some posts on that. Thank you guys. It really means a lot that you're supporting me, and I wouldn't be here today if not for you folks and the love that you guys provide. So thank you. So next week, Anna Davis and her book, we're going to be talking about, I just misspoke. Tomorrow we're going to be meeting with Anna Davis. That's right. I think up front, I probably misspoke then too. We're going to be talking with Anna tomorrow at 5 p.m. on Art Talk. And I'm really excited to speak with her because her book's coming out on the 14th of May. So you guys have a great night. Thank you so much for listening. And I will see you tomorrow night.